All right, everyone. Welcome back to JeanJacquesMachado No Gear Required. Today, to me, it's incredible what the Jiu-Jitsu world can do and make you end up meeting people that you never ever imagined. I saw this gentleman in the middle of '90s in Brazil, in the biggest show Brazil has in terms of music. And I have right here next to me someone that I never thought I would be sitting right next to him because I saw him at that show in 1994 in Brazil. What do we know? I have today here Rikki Rockett, the drummer of that amazing, incredible band Poison. Oh my goodness.
And I'm the one that's kind of blown away that I'm sitting here with the great Jean Jacques, the most technical grappler in the world.
Man, that's what jiu-jitsu can do. It's incredible. And Ricky also, besides all the expertise as a drummer, he's also black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's been training jiu-jitsu for a lot of years. He's been training so many years with Renato Magno, one of the Machados, I think the only Machado brothers, black belt. I don't know any other. And Rick has been training, I don't know how many years.
25 years.
25 years. Oh my gosh.
Because we just found a photo that was 23 years old, and he goes, "Oh, you had already been training 2 years," because Eddie Bravo was there, and that was a photo from here. And so we ran the dates. And so, yeah, it's 24, 25, something like that. I should be good by now at this, right?
The know what is incredible is one of the things that I know, and I will go back that later on, is that I don't think you taught training jiu-jitsu for many years. One day you actually going to be in a competition. And you wait all the way to, what, your black belt?
Yeah. I was a black belt for 3 months. I'm
And
fighting some guy. It's like a third or fourth degree. It's like,
but to know the incredible thing is, Rick, is to me just the fact that you sign up, you show up, you fought, and that was pretty close match. For me it's a victory because I don't. It's incredible because someone and I consider you're like a celebrity, and to see someone
to some.
dedicate, man, to all of us, trust me. A lot of people that I speak about you, they know who you are more than I can imagine. And I call some people to find things about you that I did not know and fans of yours. And it's incredible to see that the dedication you have and explain to me why you're such an incredible musician.
Oh, thank you so
Oh,
much. I'm
man.
humbled by your words.
No, no.
Yeah. So,
Let me start asking you here is it's interesting to me because I have no idea. I just like the music, the song, and enjoy. And I'm sure a lot of people know, but I'm here and I'm going to ask you questions that I have on my own.
sure.
What did make you start? Because become a drummer in such a success in a band, and if I'm not wrong, it's 45 million copies sold outside the United States, 15 plus million copies sold in the United States. And I remember as my teenager years, man, that's Poison was one of the main musics I have driving my car. How was that beginning for you?
Well, it was crazy. My dad was a trumpet player. And so the first instrument I ever tried to play was trumpet. I was okay at it. But I just really liked drums. And so he was uh, a taxi driver, and somebody couldn't pay their fare one day, and they gave him a guitar as payment. So he brought it home, and I went, "Oh, I guess I should learn to play guitar." So I started this little band called the GTOs, and we played on a picnic table. And I kept looking up. I know I want to play drums. I don't want. Do you want this? No, no, no. It's your dad's. You can't. So finally, I went, "Dad, you know what? I love this guitar. I just want to play drums." He goes, "Okay, you're on your own.
How
How are
old,
you going to figure out?"
how old were you back then?
Oh, probably 10, 11,
You already knew
something.
what you want. You want to play
Before that, I
drums.
wanted to be a race car driver, but and then I saw live music and a live drummer, and all of a sudden everything changed. So I got
Who was your inspiration as far as drumming?
You know what? At that moment was just this guy in a local band that played at camp. My buddy said, "Hey, let's go to my Boy Scout camp." We went, and there was a band playing called the Riverboat Crew, and everyone's all hand grabbing crayfish and stuff, and I'm sitting there just watching the drummer, going, "Oh my God, this is so amazing! They're loud. They're just, you know what I mean." And I just wanted to play drums after that. So I wound up. This is not nice. Okay, my sister was dating this guy, and he had bongos in his car, and I saw him in the back of that car, and I went, took him, hit him in my room, right?
We just borrow. Let's
Yeah.
go this way. We just borrow that.
So I'm playing him, and she found out that I took him, and she was babysitting for me one night, and immediately she said, "You're going to your room for the night." She felt a little bit bad, so she goes, "I'll give you my record player, or I'll give you some of my records." I'm like, "Okay." So I had the bongo drums, I had the record player. I'm like, so I started playing along to the records, and at that moment, I just knew this. I can do this. I know I can do this. So that started my whole journey.
And where was that? Because you're native, you're from
No, I'm from
Pennsylvania, right?
central Pennsylvania, yeah.
Yes, there we go.
Harrisburg area. It's not too far from Philadelphia.
And jumping to how many would say when was the age that, because I know you create a band as getting a teenager and an adult stage, you have until you became part of the group Poison. And how was that end up happening? Because it was interesting reading some of the things about you. Is you start the drum and here we go, and suddenly later on you see you in that amazing band.
I wanted to perform like kind of right away. You know what I mean? I'd learn a little bit and I'd be like, "Oh, hey, come watch me." You know what I mean? I needed that gratification or something. And so, I constantly was putting little bands together. And somebody would get mad at somebody and they'd walk away. And somebody would get mad. And this is what I always try to explain to younger musicians that go like, "Hey, what is the secret to staying together for a long time?" and stuff like that. And it's so weird because this sport is kind of an individual sport, you would think. But if you don't have a team, it's going to fall apart. You cannot do this on your own. Okay. And I always tell people that it's a lot like sports. Everybody has their position in the band, and you have to learn to respect it, and you have to work together. And it's the collective
Yeah, it's a
thing
definite
that
team
creates.
effort. Team
It's an
effort for
effort. It's a
sure.
team effort. And if you don't have that, so many musicians grow up very into themselves, playing, it's all about them, all about them, all about them. And they get into a group situation and it's all about that guy, it's all about that guy, and nobody's getting along and nobody's really working together. You have to figure out how it's good. If you're going to play music, you should also do sports. I know that sounds crazy, and people are going to be like, "No, you're wrong." Yeah, I'm right. Trust me. You have to learn that team spirit. If you don't learn it, you're going to have a hard time working together in a band. You're going to think you're the guy, and you can do it without anybody. And there's very few people that can really do that. You got Prince. You got a couple of people here and there, and that have ever, really done well on their own, but it's a team. It's a team.
And it's incredible to me is, and I'm asking that because I have no idea. I mean, we see things, but how is it to travel the world, to have so many shows and have thousands and millions of people watching? Is that a way to describe that feeling when you go to a show and you see this huge crowd in front of you guys, and here we go. What is the feeling that
Believe
you
it or not,
have?
it's actually scarier to play for a small group of people. I know that sounds funny. You can see everybody's eyes on you. You can see every little judgment in their eyes and all that kind of stuff. When you're playing a big show, you're just kind of doing your thing out there. It's like Rock in Rio when we played there, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But it was like I felt like I was swimming in quicksand. It's like I felt like I couldn't play fast enough, or I was playing too. I just felt like I was in dreamland. You know what I mean? So it's sort of a dreamy feeling, you know? And when I play for smaller groups of people, it's like that's like a hard reality. It's like I'm looking at you. I'm looking.
What would be the difference that you see from your time on the early days as musician in today's time?
It's so different to try to get anywhere. Obviously, it's there's a lot of social media involved these days. Um, when we were growing up in central Pennsylvania, on the East Coast, there was a lot of punk rock and new wave around the time that I was trying to do rock and roll. Okay. But the punk movement, the thing that was so cool about it is they were a do it yourself kind of mentality.
Yes.
Okay. And so we took cues from that and went, we're going to make our own flyers. We're going to rent our own places to play. We'll do our own mailing. We'll do everything. We'll make our own clothes. We'll just do everything. And that concept, that punk attitude, helped build us to be able to do. We were actually kind of nonconformist. We were the nonconformists. We were the ones that were the rebels because we were the younger rock guys going, I don't care if new wave and punk is big right now. We're going to do this stuff, right? We're going to, and we want big rock. We want all that stuff, and it worked. It worked better when we got out here on the West Coast because that was happening already out here. The East Coast was a different groove. New York was, like I said, very new wave, Blondie, all that stuff, and Philly was vocal bands, a lot of black vocal bands. Harrisburg was somewhere in between all that. Washington, D.C. was very punk rock, and Baltimore was very rock and roll. So we played Baltimore a lot. Rico Chiapparelli's hometown, the butcher, the Baltimore butcher. But moving out here, this is where it was happening. This is where there was people were starting to get traction with hard rock.
And when did you feel that, you know what, I think we're gonna take over? When was that click that you, as a musician, have your band felt this was a hit?
I'll tell you exactly when I knew something was different about us. It was probably not. We moved out here in '84. I want to say 80, 85, late 85, November 12th, 1985. We played the Troubadour. And when we showed up to the gig, we had a line around the block, and it was a game-changing gig. I went, who else is playing with us? And they're like, no, they're here for you. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Now, that's a few hundred people. In the big picture, you're like, that's still a microcosm, right? But I knew that what we were doing, we were going the right direction. You know what I mean? And then I thought, it's going to be easy from here, but it wasn't. I mean, our first song that was on MTV was at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
saw it. It's like
I used to stay up until, I don't know, Headbangers Ball was like at midnight or something. It was always really
that
late.
was
in
the
the
best
evening.
time, right?
Yeah.
That's when you got all the good stuff,
Yeah.
right? Not the heavy rotation stuff, but yeah. So I was like, hey, we're in breakout rotation or something like that, whatever they put it on there. And the record company was like, look, we'll give you another video, but you're not going to have the budget. We'll give you another single, but you're not going to have the budget, and only if you get a tour. And we were like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Otherwise, we're back at the warehouse, living in a warehouse. And we got the Rat tour, opening for Rat. And God bless Rat for taking us out there. That band definitely helped break Poison. A lot of people don't know that, but because they wanted us out on the road, and we started to do better than them at one point. Our merchandising, we only had a couple shirts, they had a ton, and we were starting to outsell them, and it was an interesting time. Then I don't think they liked that, but then they went, you know what? Hey, it is what it is. But let's just be good sports about it, and they always were. They always were. So
In all of this is, let's take Brazil out. Which country was in a way, your favorite place that you felt, man, that was an amazing show we had? In which country did you felt somehow more? Because I'm sure you feel connections with the crowd when you go and do your show, but which place that you felt like, man, that was one of the
Outs-
amazing moments
Outside of the
US?
United
Yes,
States?
outside US.
Probably, probably Castle Donington. We played that show and it was crazy. It was a big show. It wasn't as big as Rock in Rio, but almost. And that's a massive crowd. And, and I don't even, I was on, when you play, like I said before, when you play those kind of shows, those big shows, I'm sure you've done this when you've competed in front of a lot of people. You feel like you're an automatic pilot a little bit. It's like your instinct is kicking in. You're not thinking about it.
That's
It's,
that's one of the questions I had because to me, when I put my gear on, it feels like I change or something changed on me. And I'm sure, and I like the things that you do. Is you have a lot of the makeup and the hair and the whole production. Did you feel that when you do that and you look in the mirror, it's something that kicks in? It's like, okay, I'm in show mode.
oh, totally. You put your rock outfit on. You know what I mean? It's like, it gives you some bravery and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I grew up with a Long Ranger and all that kind of stuff. You put on a mask and you go fight. You know what I'm saying? So I've always loved the pageantry of rock as well as the music. I like that I've always found that when it usually starts from a person's attitude, and from their attitude, they dress a certain way, they play a certain way, they talk a certain way. Everything comes from that attitude. Like Rico said that one day, he goes, boring people are usually boring fighters. Boring people are usually boring rock stars. Or not rock stars at all. But and sometimes there's this hidden personality, that comes out that they don't show. I just did a video on Blind Al Wilson from Canned Heat, and this was a guy that on stage he was unbelievable, but he was a very, very insecure person and didn't want to be around anybody when he was off stage. So you never know. But generally speaking, you know what I mean? It gives you some sort of power. You know what I mean? I'm going to put on my rock outfit and destroy the world. I'm going to put on my superhero outfit and destroy the world. It's fun.
And doing that, how can I ask you that? Let's go back here to one thing that I'm also curious to know. When was the first, would say, glimpse of an idea for you to actually start practicing jiu-jitsu?
Um, well, I wrestled in high school. Uh, Intramural wrestling. I was on the team and I didn't want to cut my hair, so the coach said we're cutting it off at the match, and that's how they did it back then, right? He had a pair, so he goes, "You're not going to like the haircut, so go get it cut by somebody that's good." Okay. Anyway, I wrestled. I was good. I was good at it. But years later, I mean, I watched the movies and everything, and I thought, well, martial arts has got to be this crazy kung fu stuff. So I enrolled in a kung fu school. I tried that. You know what I mean? I'm like, why isn't this working? Well, I'm not beating everybody up. You know what? I couldn't figure it out. But we had a situation when we moved out here where my life was literally threatened with a guy with a knife. And I decided that if I ever made some money, I was going to take privates and learn how to defend against a knife. And so I found Cass Magda,
Yes.
who's one of Hanat's students now. And Guru Cass, he was second generation Jeet Kune Do. So we learned the Bruce Lee stuff and the Muay Thai, Silat. And then when I started to play around with the Silat, I didn't even care about anything else because I was back to grappling. It was a loose grappling. It was a stand-up, more grappling. It's different than jiu-jitsu. It's not as connected. But it rekindled my interest in grappling again. And then when I was with David Meyer at an animal thing.
I know you're very into also animal rights.
Yes. Um, and that's when I think we were at something, and you spoke about diet and things like that, and being responsible and things like that. And I went and talked to you and John, I believe it was.
John and Higgin.
John,
And Higgin,
maybe
yes.
Higgin
It
was
was
there.
John and Higgin there.
Oh, it was
With,
not you.
with David Meyer.
Okay, all right. I apologize. And
But we look like. That's a good thing. I would tell everyone that was me. It makes me feel good now. We look like.
I thought I had met you that day. No, I did not.
I came later on, but I remember John mentioned, like, man, we met this great rock star, Rikki Rockett, and we spoke about jiu-jitsu, and I think he might come to our school, and I remember that. And I remember I think Alicia Silverstone, she was one of the,
yeah.
and I think was somewhere in Beverly
And
Hills,
her brother was
with
there.
the fur, with something related
it
to
was
the
Fur
fur.
Free Friday.
Yes.
I believe it was. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I'll try it. I want to go. I'll do fine. I had jiu-jitsu. I mean, I had wrestling under my belt. I had C-Log under my belt.
Renato's laughing there at you.
Yeah,
He's
of course.
laughing at there.
So I walk in, and one of the first people I meet is Eddie Bravo. Okay, he's got his hair up in a bathing cap
man.
and earmuffs on, right? And but he doesn't train with me right away. So I'm watching everything. I'm like, what is going on? Everybody's in gis, but they're on the ground, like, you know what I mean? Sweat everywhere. It was hot in there. I was like, whoa, this is a trip. Like, why don't you just take that gi off? Like, it'd be easier to wrestle. Like, that's going to get in the way. And all these things are going through my head. I wasn't understanding putting anything together. And then Dave Myers like, hey, started to work with me a little bit. Started to train with a couple of guys. I got tapped out about a dozen times. I think it was 12 or 13 times. I said, I'm never coming here again. I walked to the front desk and I said, sign me up. My mind was going two different directions. I don't want any part of this. I want to be here every day. And I went home very humbled and thought about a lot of things. I reassessed a lot of my ideas about what self-defense was. And, my inspiration, honestly, was also Horace Gracie in the UFC.
Oh,
because
definitely.
and I was putting that together. And I was, all these things were coming together. And then once I started, that was it. I became extremely addicted, as you can tell,
I mean,
20 some years later.
25 years and he's
Yeah.
still going, put his gear on and training. And in that whole experience that you have today as a jiu-jitsu black belt, what would be the combination or the comparison, what influence that jiu-jitsu and the music have on you?
Yeah, I have a perfect answer for that, especially with drums. Drums are 50% mental, 50% physical. Jiu-jitsu is 50% mental, 50% physical. It's like
It
peanut
felt
butter
right
and jelly.
into.
You know what I mean? And that's why when I swear to God, this is not an advertisement. I'm coming up with my own supplement, right? And because I was talking to the guy going, drummers and jujitsu people, martial artists, like, we don't want bodybuilder stuff where we get all bulked up and we can't go for 2 hours or whatever. We want to feel good the whole time. And that's what so I'm actually coming out with my own supplement called Black Belt Blend.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that is
'Cause
fantastic.
Nobody's really done a black belt blend. I'm doing
Yeah,
a black
That's,
belt blend.
that's
And
awesome.
I have a question too. What you just said about the 50% mental, because like you, I mean, I've never played, but first concert I ever went to, I was just fixated on the drummer. Like, to me, he was the anchor of the show. And I just marveled at how each limb was moving independently. I was just studying his technique. I'm like, how does he get one arm to do this, the other arm to do this, his legs, his hands, and like the band is feeding off his rhythm. So when I teach, I use this analogy. I say, when you do jujitsu, you're using your whole body. So if you're struggling with a technique, you have to think about it in that context. One limb is not doing something. Something is being neglected. Your whole body is always connected. Your arms are doing something. Your legs are doing something. And if your technique is off, one limb is not doing its job. Would that be an accurate analogy?
Absolutely. There's that synergy without a doubt. I mean, Donaher, the coach, was talking about, when, you take somebody to the ground, you're losing 50% of your mobility right away. Okay. And it's just like a javelin thrower. You know what I mean? If you put somebody on their knees and you're not going to throw the javelin as far. So taking somebody to the ground, that synergy of not being able to mobilize the whole body to do something completely changes. But it creates another option now too. You know what I mean? We live in that other option.
Yes,
you
yes.
know what I'm saying?
Let me go back and ask you this too, is because a lot of people today wants to become a musician. They wants to become a drummer. They want to be with a band. And I think the life experience you have on that, what would you say to someone who dreams about to become a rock star, to be like you? What would be the steps they should take today?
God, I've thought about this a lot. Like, how would I go about it if I was starting out right now? And it's so hard to understand myself without my history behind me and how I did things. We just played a lot. We played a lot of gigs. We played a lot of places. We got in front of as many people as we could get in front of, and did the best we could. And social media is important, obviously, these days. But I think the main thing is when one person says to another person, eye-to-eye contact, this guy is great, is different than saying on a podcast or
Yes.
say, oh, this band is really great. You're not really connecting. You have to go to where people. That's one thing Poison did. When our record came out, it was independent, the first record. It did really well because we had played so many of those places already. We just took a Winnebago van and went to where everybody lived. You're not coming to us, we're coming to you, and we're going to play for you. Please come out. I promise you'll have a good time. And that's what we did. And I think touring is and right now, unfortunately, we can, but touring is an extremely important thing, that personal touch. It's never going to change, no matter how big any of this stuff gets. That personal, just like teaching a person one-on-one. You can do it remotely, of course. You can get a lot out of it. But one-on-one,
completely
touch
different.
Somebody,
Yes.
it's different.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
When you play an instrument and that music hits you physically, from me to you, there's a connection that you cannot.
You feel that energy. That
Yeah.
you cannot do that without being in front of the person live. That's I agree 100% with you.
I always wanted our songs to be a soundtrack for our live show, because the live show is really what it's all about. So it's like, what are we going to play live? How can we make it work really well live? That's what counts to me. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's where I'm really going to connect with a fan and really know if it's like I said, that judgmental eyes, man. You see those front people in the front row, and it's like, if you're doing a good job or not that night. It's like, if I don't want to know, I don't want to look at anybody because I know I'm doing a bad job right now.
Is there like any favorite song that you feel that is a must in every show you did?
Yeah, probably Young Skinny Bop. I have other songs that we don't play live that I wish we did, but that's a good one because it's a good drummer's groove. It's a swing. It's in 4, but it swings, and so probably that one. You got to play that one. Everybody bounces up and down, and it's a good time. It epitomizes to me what Poison is about, even more than Talk Dirty to Me, which was arguably one of our.
Now let me ask you this too. I grew up in something very important in my family, and the Machado's a great family. I was about nutrition, what we eat, and if I'm correct, you're a vegan.
I'm vegetarian. I do have some egg whites and stuff like that, so I'm not gonna, say. But I haven't had meat in God, I don't know how many years.
Did you miss the meat? Did you feel there was an improvement in your health in general?
I did feel it was an improvement, and it was hard for me because I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and we had steak on the grill, and I grew up with that. I go back, and people are still going over and have a steak. I mean, that's just how it is, right? And but so in order for me to make that transition, and I did it for the animals. Not for health. I mean, now I look back and I'm like, I'm glad I did it for my health. But at that time, I did it because I was promoting to save animals, but I was eating them, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. I don't have a good argument here. People are going to look at me and say, okay, you're about saving animals, but you eat them, right? Okay, I'm just trying to get this straight. So I kind of went, I got to change this, right? I had to fast for a week. And I didn't like vegetables that much. I didn't. I was a meat and potatoes guy, man. So when I started to come off that fast, I was eating all the things that I didn't like, and they were amazing all of a sudden. All of a sudden, Brussels sprouts and cauliflower and everything. I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome, because I was so hungry. You know what I mean? But it was like, so I've never looked back. I mean, there's mock meats now, especially with Impossible Burger and all that stuff. It's good stuff. It's high in sodium, so you got to watch it. So I try to eat more natural way of doing things. But hey, I've got kids too, so it's, they want an ice cream sandwich, and it's like, oh no, I'm not going to I'll have a bite. Oh, you didn't finish it?
Now, let me ask you this: to me, I think the whole life experience that you had, evidently, I think the jiu-jitsu, the music, this whole process of your life comes down later on in life, I think, was the biggest challenge of your life. And I know that you had, and you beat that, you had cancer on your throat. How was that news to you? Suddenly, well, wait a minute, I have cancer?
Yeah, it was terrible. It freaked me out. So what happened was the whole family got a sore throat late spring, I think it was. And everybody got better except me. My sore throat didn't go away. So I went back to the doctor for the second time. He had put us all in the same thing. And I said, I also have a lump here. And he goes, oh, yeah, you do. Let me scope you. Have you ever had that done? And I go, no. He goes, you might have a secondary infection. I don't know. Let me just take a look. He took a look, and he sat down, and he took his glasses off and goes, I think it's one of two cancers. And I think we need to do a biopsy right away. And I went, I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
I went, what? How? And we did a biopsy. I said, I want to do it absolutely as quick as we can. And so the following week I had to live with it over the weekend. And we did a biopsy, and it came out, and he said, I didn't find any cancer. And I said, oh my God, this is awesome. What do you think it is? Maybe, I got to tell you, I still think it's cancer. And I went, what? I don't trust it. I want to send you somewhere else. I don't believe my own biopsy. So I went to USC. They did a biopsy. This took weeks, okay? They did one here. They did a bunch of different things. And they said, yeah, it is. It's cancer. And
Now, let me ask you this. I know I have no idea that experience that you had. But I want to see if you can share what actually goes through your mind. It's kind of, I don't know, you go and suddenly see a whole life flash in front of you, and it's like, oh, is that the end? Or it's another fight that I have to put up? How that happens? How do you kind of see that happening?
You know what? It was hard to digest it at all. The doctor was like, look, it's treatable, it's curable. We just have to pick which way we're going to go. And there was a couple of options. And the standard of care at the time was chemo, radiation, or surgery, or a combination of any of the three. And he said, look, if it came from HPV, then you have a better chance. We're finding that the HPV positive patients with head and neck cancer do better. If it didn't, then your odds are a little less of beating it. And so he said, but it takes several weeks to find out. I said, great, everything's a waiting game, right? So he said, we don't have time to wait for that. We're just going to get you into treatment. It's the same treatment anyway. So the tough thing about head and neck cancer is that you have to do it at the same time. You do the chemo and the radiation at the same time, or the surgery and then the chemo and the radiation. So you're getting just bombarded, right? I chose to do that Erbitux, which was a targeted kind of chemo, because regular chemo can make you deaf. Okay,
Yes,
it can, and I already can't hear. Okay, very well from years of playing drums. So I said, I'll take that option. And he said, I'm not sure if it does quite as well, but I think we'll be fine. And so it was 3 months of that. It was 38 treatments, radiation. I couldn't swallow. I was on a liquid diet. I had to take medicine I got pimples all over and my tongue. I mean, I couldn't eat a banana. I mean, everything was just so labored. It's, don't worry, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And you have to wait, when you're done with treatment, you have to wait for 3 months to do the imaging because everything's swelled up, so you can't see anything. So you have to wait for 3 months, which is just horrible. And you think maybe you beat it. You don't know if you beat it. And you're like, I hope I beat it. I think I did, because you still don't feel good, right? But I didn't get better. It was just still there. So they did the imaging after 3 months, and it was still there. And it was on the other side now. And it was like, now my options went from this to not many. And I had heard about immunotherapy from that doctor, and there was a guy in San Diego that's the best at it. Maybe in the world, I heard, Dr. Ezra Cohen. So I floored it down there to meet with him. He said he would meet with me on a day off, and he said, I think I can get you on a trial. There's 3 right now. I think I can get you on a trial. And I started the trial. I had to stay down there for a week and do all these tests, and then they put me on the trial. And in 9 weeks, it was 95% gone.
Wow.
Just this tiny little bit.
Now let me ask you this.
Okay.
In this whole process that you go through, where did you find the strength? What was the strength behind to make you go through this? Because the waiting time, no certainty of anything. Now you're from the first treatment going to the second one and not even sure it's a trial. It's not something that is qualified 100% yet.
Well, the plot thickens, okay? I mean, during the time that when you do radiation, they make a mask and it fits over your face tight. It's wet. They make a wet thing and they put it on and it turns into a hard cast. And then they screw you to a table so you can't move because it has to be razor sharp. So you get paranoid. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been pinned down on the ground in jiu-jitsu for how many years? Him on top of me, people just bent on my destruction. I can handle this plastic mask for 12, 15 minutes at a shot, 37 times. I'll count down how I'll get through it, and that's how I got through it. I knew that if I really had to get out, I could rip it off. I know I could do that. I could hip escape and get out. I know I could. So it helped me deal with it. But some people completely freak out. You know what I mean? And
I can imagine.
And I understand that because, and then you have to have imaging, and that imaging, I'm sure we've all had MRIs probably by this age, and MRIs aren't fun. But when you're doing this stuff all the time, so the trial was every time I would do the infusion with the immunotherapy every 3 weeks, and I would take a pill twice a day. That was the trial, okay? And at the end of 9 weeks, I would do imaging. And that first one, like I said, it was 95% gone. The second set of imaging, completely gone. Nothing there. They did, I was on other trials too to trace DNA, cancer DNA, and all kinds of different things. Everything was zero. I mean, it was unbelievable. So they accelerated that treatment through the FDA so that they could get other people on that treatment right away, on the Keytruda part of it, which I felt like, wow, this is one of the coolest things I ever did. I was involved in something that was successful. Now other people are going to benefit from it, right? And that day that I got they said, you're 100% no cancer. We hope it stays that way. We don't know. Right now, they're 100%. And I went, that means I have to do something for other people now. I have to. And they said, well, first thing you have to do is go out to the front desk and check in so you can get your infusion because you're not off the trial yet, okay? I went, okay, no problem. I walked out to the front desk, and there's a guy sitting there like this, and he goes, excuse me, are you Rikki Rockett? And I go, yeah. He goes, I heard you were down here. Will you talk to my brother? He has head and neck cancer, and I want you, can you help him? And I said, yes, I absolutely can. I know the best doctor in the world with the best treatment in the world, and I'm going to go right now. And I burst into the office. I shouldn't even have done it. I said, I need to talk to you. You're his brother, and this is the best doctor. And I felt like I was so excited. You know what I mean? Yeah. I felt like I wanted to help everybody. And I still feel that way. I want everybody that could possibly be on immunotherapy because you don't have to do any of that horrible radiation and all the sick, and you don't have to do any of that. When it works, it's amazing. And I wish they would just, let's get past COVID so we can save cancer patients because people need that treatment right now.
I'm sure. I'm sure in a way, it's something so incredible because you be in that situation and being somebody so famous, you definitely feels that in a mission right now because if people see you did and worked well, you inspire now other people to go out there. It's like, man, Rikki Rockett did it and it worked.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely will help so many people to.
I hope so. That's all I can do is just hope I can inspire people.
Do you know one thing it's I admire in celebrities like you? I wish I would find more like you. Is a way to not just to talk, but to do things, the actions that you take, like with the animal rights. And I remember that, and suddenly you change your life, the way you eat, because you don't want to say you do something and you do something else. You just became an example of. And this is so amazing, man.
Thank you.
And let me go and ask you, I was watching one of the videos you have on YouTube. I think is that a project that you have? I saw the Topanga Canyon course.
Oh, yeah. I have a YouTube channel called Rikki Rockett's Legend Tripping. I've always loved, and people have asked me, they're like, you went through a very dark time. Why do you do dark videos? I've always loved horror stuff and scary stories and spooky stories. Not cancer stories, but monsters and all that kind of stuff has always been fun for me. And I wanted to do a YouTube channel that wasn't about drums or music or anything that I do professionally. I wanted it to be something that I had fun with, a hobby. And I get to mix riding my motorcycle, my obsession with cameras and video cameras, and my obsession with horror movies and scary, fun urban legends are my thing. I love urban legends. Because I can travel all around the country and there's an urban legend in every town across the world.
That was like a very danger place in a way. That place you went in Topanga and the graffiti and the abandoned place.
Yeah. Yes, you can fall. You
sounds
can hurt
like
yourself.
An investigation, almost like those TV shows that we see. But it's interesting because you're there in person, actually showing inch by inch of the location and explain the whole story.
Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be on, I got to find the date, but I'm going to be on the Travel Channel, an Amityville special. They saw my Amityville piece that I did, and they said, oh, we need another expert for Amityville. I'm like, I guess I'm an expert. Yeah, there you go. I've been there enough times, but yeah, I'm on the show. So, I mean, it's an hour show or something. So,
and let me ask you this, Rick. What is music or being a drummer, having that amazing life? I think like living a dream to do in things that you did in your life. What that represents to you, the music, the art, the drummer, to be around the world, to be able to meet and see a lot of different cultures to you. What is that the flavor that you can take from that, and tell us.
You know, I feel like a carny. Do you know what a carny is?
Now, please explain me.
A carny is a person that like travels around with a circus. Okay, you kind of get. You know, I mean, my education only. You know, I have a high school education. I graduated high school, but I didn't go to college. So the rest of my education comes from directly seeing things, being all over the world, seeing different cultures.
Do you think that's most of the time can do even better than college? I'm not saying people not to go to college,
right?
But I'm saying that the life itself, and please continue.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to go to other countries and you realize that, I mean, it's like a lot of people are like, you know, United States first, United States first. Well, of course, I was born here and this is my country and I'm proud and I'm patriotic. But it isn't the only place in the world. And when you go and you see, it's the people. I mean, really, it's people first, okay? Not a place. And my heart is always when I'm with the people and their fans. That's what warms my soul. Is, you know, that it, and jiu-jitsu is one of those things. I'm trying to remember what country I was in. I was in a country. Trying to remember, and I'm going through a line somewhere to see an exhibit, and a guy has a jiu-jitsu shirt. And I'm like, oh, you're a jiu-jitsu guy. And he had very broken English. He goes, yeah. We were brothers suddenly, all the way across the world. You know what I mean? It's like the biggest brotherhood, like in the world. It's awesome. So yeah, and that's the other thing about jiu-jitsu. It's the United Colors of Benetton in here. I mean, you come in here and it's everybody. I mean, it doesn't matter what culture you're from. The police are training with guys that look like thugs. You know,
that was my next question to you.
Everybody's responsible, because they've come here and they've put in the time and they have the respect for each other. It creates this rise of respect.
And what jiu-jitsu represents to you?
That
in a sense of, is that jiu-jitsu had an impact on your life, your personal life, and things that you do? Because you've been trained jiu-jitsu for half of your life.
Yeah. I would be hard pressed to understand myself without jiu-jitsu anymore. You know what I mean? Because it is my lifestyle, and that's one thing. You know, sometimes I see these companies, gi companies, and different people, and it's like, you know, they're very focused on the fighters and the competitors, and it's like the people that live the lifestyle every day, the teachers, the educators, you know, people that have been training for 15 and 20 years, and every day the younger students see them and look up to them. They are as much, if not more, impactful than a lot of the competitors. And I wish some of these companies would pay more attention.
Yeah, they're much bigger number than the competitors itself. Now let me ask you easy questions, and I do ask that to every single person that's sitting in that chair. Who is Rikki Rockett?
Wow, that's a big question, huh? I thought maybe you could tell me that. I was relying on you guys. No, don't answer that. That could be bad. No. You know, I think I'm a daddy more than anything. I am a daddy to my kids, and that is first and foremost.
And I think I have to extend that answer, because the time that I know you, I think what's incredible is we end up meeting and having a lot of famous students, but not all of them were the person that sometimes we expected. And I think it's knowing you all these years for the person that you are. You never treat us different in a way of because you're more famous, you always being an incredible person, hanging out with us. And here I am sitting next to Rikki Rockett and saw you as a teenager, and meeting you in person, know you all these years. It's incredible, the human being that you are, and having the life that you had. And here I am, you're sharing a lot of stories with us, and I know for all these years, and with Renato, and you being an incredible friend. And I always tell that if I know people more than 7 years, to me it's a family. And knowing you all these years and see that you are an incredible person. You know,
Thank
and
you so much. I appreciate
it's
that.
an honor to have you here with us and sharing a little bit of some of the things. And I hope and I wish I can bring you back many more times because there's so many more things to talking about. And it's good to see you, man.
There is.
And
Thank you.
show
Thank you
that
very much.
a real fighter, you know, going through what you went through. And still here smiling, laughing, and
a
being an
shout out to
example.
Coach over here who was on the podcast. I mean, God, I've spent so much time with this guy. It's crazy, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Renato Magno. He's laughing. He's off camera here, but he's having a great time
I spend
here.
more time with him than my ex-wife. That's probably that's probably why she's my ex-wife. No, I.
But you know, but
it's the great, jiu-jitsu is the great leveler. I took it very seriously when I walked into your school the first time and said, leave your ego at the door. You have to, because if you don't, you're not going to hold up very well.
But it's interesting because, we spend so much time on the mat, and you share all these amazing stories with people and the connections that you make and how things kind of cross over. A conversation with one person can carry over into something that you might experience later with somebody else. And I have a gym in my house, and I was hanging out with a friend last week, and we were sitting on the mat, and he shared a quote with me because we were talking about the student-teacher relationship and how much we absorb, but then we can't keep it. And he told me this quote, and it's just been resonating in my head. And the whole time I've been listening to you and everything that you've been through and everything, especially the story with the young man right after you're diagnosed cancer-free, your first thing was to help. You can't keep it unless you give it away. And that's you. I heard this on Monday.
You guys are nice, man. What the heck?
There you go. I'm out.
That is a really, really great quote. I'm gonna let that resonate.
I'm going to steal that from him.
Yeah.
It's not mine.
I got through an entire interview without doing a Bruce Lee quote. That's unusual for me.
All right, that's
Still
your
time.
chance. That's your chance right now. We're going to end this no gi required.
All right, I
with
got one
a quote from Rikki Rockett. Let's do
thing
it,
about
Rick.
jiu-jitsu and the thing that he liked about judo is in order to learn to swim, you got to get in the water. And that's what you do with jiu-jitsu.
You got it, guys.
Absolutely.
Rick, thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
It's a great honor to have you here. Looking forward to see you back, and it's so great to see you, man. Thank you. See you next time for another no gi required. Thank you, guys.